Hey everybody, it's Decap here, and in this video we're going to be comparing Herald of the Sun and Templar, which are the two hero talent options for Retribution Paladins in the War Within. Well, we're mostly going to be comparing them. I'm not going to say one's for sure better than the other, but I do think that they might have some uses that are more fit for certain styles of combat or certain content that you might be doing. So we'll go through each of them and kind of talk about it, and then we'll do an overall thing. Now, when these first came out, like on data mining, I was like, wow, Herald of the Sun sounds like AoE, Templar sounds like single target. I got some really hard pushback on that, which I don't know why. I think I might know why now that I've been playing it, and I think it's because people are going to really like Templar because of the hammers. People love hammers as rep paladins. It's just a known thing, and maybe they're just kind of being defensive about that. Like, no, Templar's the best at everything. But I don't think that's going to be the case. And we'll go through and I'll try to say why. So we'll just go row by row. So Herald of the Sun's main ability is Dawnlight. Dawnlight is just a dot that goes on to your target or targets if you have more than one target. And so it can be a single target dot, an AoE dot, just depends what you're fighting. Whereas Light's Guidance gives you Hammer of Light. And Hammer of Light at 5 holy power, after you cast Wake of Ashes, it turns into Hammer of Light, and at 5 holy power, you can cast this, and it does quite a bit of damage. And then it also does cleave damage to up to 4 enemies. So it's not true AoE, but it is cleave damage. So if you are in a pool of, two groups in a Mythic Plus, you're only going to hit the main target and 4 other targets. But additionally calls down Empyrean Hammers from the sky to strike 3 nearby enemies as well. So it does, again, that's cleave, and it is good. It's a very strong ability on its own, like without any amplifications or anything. It's probably stronger than Dawnlight on its own, except for Dawnlight can apply to many targets. Would be the biggest difference there. Now let's go to the next row. I do have some notes written, so if you see me look to the side, I'm looking at my notes on these abilities. We have a choice. We have Morning Star. We have Gleaming Rays. Morning Star increases the damage of your Dawnlight, and Gleaming Rays makes your Holy Power spenders do 10% additional damage. Now, it increases your Dawnlight damage more quicker when you're out of combat, which isn't going to happen much, at least the type of content that I do. So I don't know if that one's going to be any good or not. Maybe it still is good. But Gleaming Rays, 10% holy power spenders, that's like a tier set bonus we've had before. That's a very strong talent to have right there. Next one is just going to be a utility. We're not going to get too much into the utility stuff. Of course, utility matters. I'm not saying it doesn't matter. In fact, I really like this utility, but it basically gives you extra heal over time effect on your Word of Glory, essentially. That's kind of like the main thing it does. On the right side, Luminosity, critical strike chance of Hammer of Wrath and Divine Storm increased by 10%. So Hammer of Wrath, that's obviously a single target ability. Divine Storm, AoE ability. So crit chance to, important abilities, regardless of if you're doing a single target boss or you're in a Mythic Plus. The critical strike chance on Hammer of Wrath isn't that important, in my opinion. But Divine Storm, 10% more crit, that's actually pretty good. So, pretty good there, and it is both single target or AoE. Over here, we have Zealous Vindication. Hammer of Light instantly calls down 2 more hammers on your target. And then For Whom the Bell Tolls specifically mentions it basically increases your judgments if you are only hitting one target. So this is a single target thing. So pretty much only single target there. Next, we have Shake the Heavens. After casting Hammer of Light, you call down an Empyrean Hammer on a nearby target every 2 seconds for 8 seconds. So this doesn't only hit your main target, but it does just cast one hammer at a time. It's not technically AoE, in my opinion. It's just a one target thing that can hit any target. So this is kind of a single target thing. But yeah, it could technically hit other targets, but it's not like it's raining down hammers on all of them. It's calls down one Empyrean Hammer on a nearby target every 2 seconds. But you could kind of count it as cleave, I guess. But in my opinion, this is just kind of like, it's like tab targeting to cast Blade of Justice or something like that, right? Wrathful, except for Blade of Justice, can crit or can cleave if you talent into that. And then Wrathful Descent, when Empyrean Hammer, critically strikes, 60% of its damage can be dealt to nearby enemies. So this is actual crit. So this means when your hammers hit, if they critical strike, then a portion of the damage will cleave nearby enemies. And then it also has utility on it, which is good. But enemies hit by effect deal 5% reduced damage to you. This is like kind of obviously kind of geared towards tanks, this ability, but it is still technically, you know, that could be useful as a ret paladin in some cases, or PvP especially maybe. But yeah, for as far as PvE goes, maybe not. Next row, we have Illumin. So this is a utility. It's about movement speed, same as Will of the Dawn. And then we have Blessing of Anchi versus Lingering Radiance. Blessing of Anchi, your damage and healing over time effects have a chance to increase the damage of your next Hammer of Wrath by 200%. Make it usable on any target regardless of their health. So basically just gives you a really powerful Hammer of Wrath because you're going to have a ton of burns on your target, tons of dots. Dawnlight leaves an eternal flame or a greater judgment on enemies when it expires or is extended. So this is actually more of an AoE thing because it can put judgment on multiple enemies, right? So then your Divine Storm hits multiple enemies with judgment on them. Whereas Blessing of Anchi is a single target. So this is a single target or AoE choice. So again, you can do AoE with that one, but you do have a single target choice as well. And then Sunseer, Hammer of Wrath, and Divine Storm critical strikes cause the target to burn for additional radiant damage. So we increased the crit above, and now they also burn. So this is a single target or AoE if you're Divine Storming burn effect on your targets. Over here we have a very good utility defensive. And then next up we have Crusader Strike, Hammer of Wrath, and Blade of Justice. Extend the duration of Shake the Heavens by 1 second. So Shake the Heavens again was the thing that caused more hammers to come down, so it's just more hammers. And if those hammers crit, they do cleave. Like I'm not leaving that out there, but basically just has a more single target damage / more chance to cleave, I would say. And then we have Bond of Fellowship, which is going to be utility. I like Unrelenting Charger. Divine Seed lasts longer, increases your movement speed by additional 30% when you first use it. So I actually really like that, but it is utility there. And we'll come back to Herald of the Sun. Aurora, after you cast Wake of Ashes, you gain Divine Purpose. If you play Paladin a lot, you know what Divine Purpose is. But basically, you cast Wake of Ashes, you get 3 Holy Power, right? So no matter what, you can just press Divine Storm or Final Verdict 2 times in a row if you really wanted to, right? Right after you cast Wake of Ashes, because you have Divine Purpose, and it's a free spender, essentially. And at it, increased damage as well. At Solar Grace, your haste is increased by 4%. So it's just that each time you apply Dawnlight, multiple stacks may overlap. So on AoE, it's going to be even more haste. Single target, it's going to be, haste each time you apply it, though. So it could technically stack up, but actually better for AoE more consistently. Second Sunrise, Divine Storm, Hammer Wrath with 50% chance to cast again. So this is a slight single target increase or a pretty good AoE increase for Second Sunrise. So they're as we're kind of seeing in Herald of the Sun, there are single target options, but honestly, the AoE options are even better. Over here on Templar, we have Endless Wrath. Calling down Empyrean Hammers, 10% chance to reset the cooldown of Hammer of Wrath, make it usable on any target. And then we have Casting Judgment, increases the damage of Empyrean Hammer by 10% for 10 seconds. So these are just single target choices here. Then we have Hammer Fall, Templar's Verdict, and Divine Storm call down Empyrean Hammer on a nearby enemy. While Shake the Heavens is active, this effect calls down an additional Empyrean Hammer. So this is more one target damage, which can possibly, with a crit, cleave as well. So it's basically, giving you more chances to cleave, but definitely good for single target. And then also, yeah, it can cleave more every time we crit. Hammer of Light applies judgment to its targets and increases your haste by 50%. So now you got a haste increase over here, similar to the haste increase over here. And our final things here on Herald of the Sun, we have Sun's Avatar. So during Avenging Wrath, you become linked to your Dawnlight, causing radiant damage to enemies that pass through the beams. And activating Avenging Wrath applies 4 Dawnlights onto nearby enemies and increases Dawnlight's duration by 25%. So now, when we're putting 4 on for AoE, this all of a sudden it becomes a lot stronger Dawnlight, right? When you automatically are having 4 of them, that's a lot of damage. So we noted earlier that the Templar base ability is stronger, but then having 4 Dawnlights is also very, very, very strong as well. The beams are just cool. They also do a good amount of damage. They will do a good amount of your overall damage in a dungeon if you use your beams correctly. And this is literally just a beam of light between you and whoever Dawnlight's on, and it can be an ally or an enemy because it can heal as well. And it needs targets to put it on. So if it's applying to 4 targets, some of them might be allies. And then you want to just move your character to get the beams to pass through as a Ret Paladin, to pass through as many enemies as possible in order to do more damage. And then over here on Templar, we have Light's Deliverance. You gain a stack of Light's Deliverance, and while Wake of Ashes and Hammer of Light are unavailable, you consume 60 stacks of Light's Deliverance, empowering yourself to cast Hammer of Light an additional time for free. So you get an extra Hammer of Light, which is, again, really, really strong. 2 Hammer of Lights versus 4 Dawnlights, right? And it's actually similar power overall. They're both very, very strong on their base abilities. And so what we really have to look at, in my opinion, is all the abilities in the middle. And basically, the only real cleave you have is your initial Hammer of Light can hit 3 enemy, or can hit 4 nearby enemies, and then your hammer crits can hit nearby enemies as well. And this is actually an AoE. It doesn't say that it's target capped or anything like that. So your extra hammers that come down can AoE, and your main ability cleaves. Over here, your main ability cleaves, but also, since you have Sun's Avatar, it also AoEs with the beams, right? So it's like cleave / AoE dot. But then so many of the abilities on this side are really, really good for AoE, right? For dungeons. And so many of the abilities over here are really, really good for pure single target. More so than AoE. Not that they can't AoE because of Wrathful Descent, just simply that they are more geared towards single target. So I picture a world where maybe we play Herald of the Sun in dungeons, at least at the start of this, and we play maybe Templar in like a patchwork style boss fight, or maybe in raid in general, you play Templar. This is kind of the way I see it right now. And, I think it's hard to kind of dispute it. Like I wrote down the stuff, and for AoE choices on Herald of the Sun, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That one's not purely AoE, but it still helps. It does more in AoE, so we'll even say 6, 7, 8. Like almost all of them, right? Almost all of them are AoE or helps your AoE. Almost everything here helps your AoE, right? And over here, it's like, yes, anything with a hammer technically helps you AoE with Wrathful Descent, but it does have to crit, to be fair. So even then, even if all of them had a hammer, it would just be based on your crit chance, right? So like if you had a 50% chance to crit with wings or something like that, then if half of the talents could do it, then you would just say like, half the talents could do hammers, then a quarter of them would, you could just like simplify it in that way, right? And I just think that this is more of a single target thing. It's still really fun. Like people think that I say Herald of the Sun is better for AoE, and that's somehow a knock on Templar, which might just be better single target. And it's also really cool. The hammers coming down is really cool. And so I don't know why people were kind of upset by that initially. Hopefully, maybe not anymore. It's been a little while since then. But I did kind of just want to compare the two of them overall. And, if I'm just being completely honest, it looks like Herald of the Sun is like a Ret Paladin hero talent, Templar is the tank one, and Lightsmith is the holy one, right? That's just kind of what it looks like based on the hero talents. Like it's very simplified that way. But I think there is room to use Templar the way it sits right now for single target stuff. So we'll see how they tune it. Ultimately, that's what's going to matter, right? If they make these hammers do a ton of damage in tuning, then they're doing a ton of AoE damage then, and then all of a sudden Templar becomes the best because it calls down so many hammers. And if they're doing a ton of damage and then cleaving into more damage, then that would be very, very good. So ultimately, it's going to rely on tuning. I'm just talking about philosophy, the way that it's built, right? The design choices. That's kind of what I'm getting at here. So That'll be it for this one. As always, I do ask you to please subscribe to the channel. It helps me out a lot. If you're already a subscriber, I did recently make a Patreon. I encourage you to check that out if you can. And other than that, everybody, have a good one.